Hey guys, welcome to another episode of MixHax. So what we do here is to try and save you some money and effort by giving you some information about mixing, and specifically what we're going to talk about today is precision in mixing. That involves, of course, your scale and, with a scale, and something that I haven't really personally been doing much is scale calibration. Now, who's calibrated their scales over here, and how often do you guys do it?
I've calibrated mine before, but only because it was doing weird stuff on the tearing. I don't really calibrate mine regularly. I would say probably once every 6 months. It's only because I feel that it sounds like it's the right term or amount of time you should do it, like servicing your car. So I do it. I've done it since I've had the scale twice. In 1 year, I've calibrated twice. Mine just comes with a 10 and a 5 gram little weight that you put on. You click the mode button, click calibrate. It calibrates on the first weight, take it off, put the second one, repeat, and then it's calibrated.
Yeah, I calibrate roughly the same amount. So it's like every 6 months, and all I do is I use the weights to check what it's weighing. So if I think I've got a 200 and a 500 gram weight. I put the 200 gram weight on. If it's measuring 200 grams, I'm happy and I move on. I don't think it's something you need to do, but you do just need to keep an eye on if your scale's not completely out. Like if your 200 gram weight is can I say 250, then that's a bigger problem for me.
So I don't have weights, okay? Richard, I know that this is something that you wanted to chat about. I don't have weights, but I've realized that my scale is doing funny things when it's tarring, like Dietz was talking about. So have you got some hacks there that we can use?
What you can do if you don't have the weights, you can go online and find the precise weight in grams of the coins in your country. So in South Africa, we have 5 Rand coins, 2 Rand coins, etc. What you can do is find the precise weight of those coins, find a number of coins, like 10 coins of the same type, wash them to get all the gunk off, dry them, and then you just put a stack of coins on the scale. You won't necessarily be able to calibrate with it, but you will certainly be able to use it as a cross-reference check, just to see if your scale is weighing accurately. Like if a 5 Rand coin is 5 grams, and you put 10 of them in a stack, your scale should be reading 50 grams on the display. If it's reading 58 grams, you've got a problem. If it's reading 46 grams, you've got a problem. And then you would probably need to buy the official calibration weight. Those are the best to use. But my experience is that one doesn't need to calibrate that often. The scales that we use aren't that accurate anyway, but they don't need to be. I check my scale periodically. This is a 200 gram weight. So I pop it on the scale and I see if it's anywhere between 199 and 201, that really is not enough of an error margin to affect my mixes. I would really only start getting concerned if it was, considerably out. So I would tend to just check the scale periodically. If it's weighing, within a percent or so of the correct amount, then you don't need to worry. Your mixes will be accurate.
Yeah, I think the same with the currency, because currency loses shavings. Like as it circulates, it also loses a little bit of weight. So if that's like a gram out or 2 grams out, I wouldn't be too concerned, because currency does weigh slightly different depending on how long the coin's been minted for.
I've actually got the numbers of what our coins weigh here. 50 cent is 5 grams, a 1 Rand is 4 grams, the 2 Rand is 5.5 grams, and a 5 Rand is 9.5 grams. So now you know.
That's pretty cool.
So you can use different combinations of coins to get yourself up to an exact number, like 50 grams or 40 grams or whatever. And that's just a very handy way to check your scale and to see if if you're in the ballpark.
So when it comes to mixing up a recipe, okay, of course, if you want to give feedback on a recipe, you need to nail that recipe as close as you can, right? I found myself sometimes, going over slightly, or, maybe just under by 0.01, but then, it's difficult to add like a half a drop or a quarter of a drop, and then I just leave it, and I'm happy with that. How big of a problem is that really? I mean, if you 0.01 out, for instance, or 0.02 out, for instance, is that a thing?
It's only going to become possibly a problem if you're working with TFA, caramel, cappuccino,
rich cinnamon.
Yeah, rich cinnamon, Flavora coconut, the really potent flavors, the FA, honey, and so on. But then in any case, you can make a dilution. And it doesn't have to be a 10% dilution. You can make a 50% dilution. If a flavor is strong at 0.5%, you don't need to go a 10% dilution. Make a 50% dilution. Put, 5 grams of the flavor in a 10 ml bottle. Add 5 grams of PG. Bang, you're on a 50% dilution. So now you just double every amount that you see in a recipe. People think dilution's 10%. It doesn't have to be. If you have a 10% dilution, you have to multiply whatever's in the recipe by 10. So, I mean, if a flavor is used at 0.25, you have to use 2.5, which is a lot. Rather make a 50% dilution, then you only have to use 0.5, which is a lot easier. But yeah. I certainly wouldn't worry. I mean, I know people are even asking things like, should I not get a scale that goes down to the 3rd decimal point? If you are getting down to 1,000th of a gram, you are not going to taste that. If you're going to be worried about that, then really you must throw out all your concentrates after 6 months and replace them all, because that little amount that your concentrate's going to fade, after 6 months or whatever, is going to make a far bigger impact than being, 0.01, 0.02 of a gram out on your mix. So, it's an imprecise science. And the thing is also that you don't need, if you mix up a recipe, you don't need to stick with that. If I add rich cinnamon to a recipe and the cinnamon isn't registering when I taste it, it's not potent enough, I'll think nothing of adding another drop, another 2 drops, or even more if I'm using with a dilution. You leave it for a couple more days to steep, and then you've corrected the mistake in it. People shouldn't get shot away with sticking absolutely to a recipe. Yes, of course, when you mix it up, you want to be reasonably accurate. But if the recipe is not then working for you, tweak it to your preference. If the strawberry isn't prominent enough, add a little bit more. It's, recipe is a guideline. It's not the Dead Sea Scrolls that you have to stay absolutely 100% to it. And in this regard, if you're using your scale, one of the big problems with a scale, and we've all tried this and it affects all scales, is when you have to add a little bit like 0.08 or 0.09, and you start squeezing your drops in, and the display on the scale freezes. So you've added 2 or 3 drops, and you've got 0.00 on your scale. You've added concentrate in, but no, you've got no reference for that. And what I do there is I count drops. I found that the HDPE bottles will, per drop, it'll be roughly 0.03 to 0.04 grams per drop. For the little PET needle nose bottles, it'll be around about 0.02. So if I need to add 0.1 grams, I count the drops as I squeeze it out. That way, if the scale doesn't register, I at least know how many drops I've done, and I can multiply that by the average weight per drop. So I know pretty much how much I've done. Also, if you get into that that problem where the scale hasn't moved, just tap the scale lightly, blow on the scale, shift the bottle, an inch to either side on the scale. Just something just to shock the scale into registering the weight that has been added, and that often works. But if it doesn't, count your drops.
Another thing that I use when it's not registering. This really only happens when I'm mixing very, very small amounts, like 20 ml samples or something like that. I would find when I put on only the empty bottle and you need to put a drop or two in, like you said, and it doesn't register. One solution could be you could have a diamond scale on hand, which measures 0.000. Or the other solution is just to fill it with a little bit, or the PG, not a little bit, whatever your recipe calls for, the PG amount. I'm assuming that you would be mixing a lower PG than VG ratio, so you would add in on a 20 ml, it would probably be like 2 or 3 ml PG. So instead of starting with my concentrates first, I would just add the PG first, and then the scale also tears it much easier because there's a weight already in it. That then, for me, I don't have to blow it or get it to register. It registers based on the full weight.
Cool. Yeah, that's some solid advice there. Yeah.
Another trick is to tear your scale as little as possible, because I've found that is a problem, but the display tends to freeze after you've teared the scale. So what I do is I use mental arithmetic, and I use additive arithmetic in my head. Like if I need to add 2 flavors at 0.15 grams each, and I've teared the scale, I'll add the first one till it's at 0.15 grams. Then I, in my head, add the second 0.15 grams, and I know I must be at 0.3. So I add the second flavor until I'm at 0.3. Then let's say I have to add 0.4 of the next flavor. I now have to go up to 0.7. So you just keep a running total in your head, or put a piece of paper and just write down, work out what the next figure is going to be and write it down. That way you keep adding flavor, or you keep adding weights to the weight that's already on the scale. And because you're not tearing as often, there's less chance that your display is going to freeze up.
Yeah, I do that same thing with the arithmetic. So I just add, especially when it's minute amounts, then I try and combine it with a flavor. So if it's something like rich cinnamon that's like 0.07%, and I know I've got something that's 2%, I will mix the 2% first, and then I'll just add the 0.07 on that one. As well. And then I'll still tear, and then I carry on with the recipe as normal, but I just exclude those 2 flavors.
Yeah. Cool, guys. Is there anything else that you would like to add?
Yeah, I think just adding on the accuracy, or like having to be accurate, there's so much more variables than that 0.1% that you're out, or sorry, not 0.1, 0.01%. I mean, because for one, if you want to truly mix up something that someone's like made, and you want it to vapor exactly the same way, you need the same device, the same build, the same atmosphere, even, because the higher sea level changes flavor profiles from lower sea levels, which I found quite interesting. And then the VG and PG makes a massive difference, in my opinion. So there's a lot more other variables. What you want to do is get as close as possible.
Okay.
Yeah, the age of your concentrates.
Yeah, that's it. There's a lot of variables that are a lot bigger than a 0.01.
Yeah. If you need to add 0.65 of flavor to a mix, and you at 0.64, really don't worry about how do I get a third of a drop. Really, you are close enough. You are not going to taste the difference between 0.64 and 0.65, I can assure you. So, yes, you want to be accurate. If you need to add 1.2, don't add 1.5. But, if you're within a couple of hundredths of a gram, really, you're there. Don't fret about stuff that you don't need to fret about.
Cool. Thanks, guys. This was really solid advice. I certainly learned 1 or 2 things here. If there's any other hacks that you know of that relate to precision that we didn't mention tonight, leave them in the comments below so that we can chat about them. If you have any questions about what we have said tonight, you're welcome to leave them in the comments and we'll get back to you. But thank you so much for watching the show. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.